There's really only one thing separating you from the life God actually wants you to live. I know exactly how it feels to hear a truth, to know God is calling you to make changes, yet nothing you try seems to make a difference. Believe me, I'm not here to waste more of your time. I've consumed a lot of content on becoming a better wife and mother. Some of it was genuinely helpful, and I'd feel motivated for a while. But before long, I'd be right back where I started, overwhelmed, guilty, and wondering if anything would ever really change until I realized I was confusing consumption for action. That's when God showed me three simple steps that finally broke me out of that cycle and helped me respond to his personal call in my life. Replacing consumption with action is one of the biggest struggles of our time. Human nature has always preferred the path of least resistance, but today the path is wider than ever. At any moment, we can search for advice on any problem and find hundreds of voices telling us what to think, feel, or do. And before we know it, we've spent hours consuming information instead of actually living it. That's why so many people stay stuck. They're constantly searching for the next answer instead of acting on what they already know, what God has already shown them. I think that's why we even see people turning to things like ChatGPT every time they have to make a decision. They're desperate for direction, but they've lost the habit of movement. It's true, without God's grace, we can do nothing. But scripture tells us that His grace is always sufficient. So if we're still stuck, the problem isn't with Him, it's on our end. We've fallen into a modern trap. We consume endless spiritual and inspirational content, and it feels like growth. But in reality, we're not living any differently. And that's where it gets a little sobering. The more truth we take in, the more accountable we are before God. In the parable of the talents, Jesus reminds us that those who are given much are expected to act on what they've been given. That's where true transformation begins, whether that's physical, spiritual, or mental. And yet, we already know that. There truly has never been a time when we've had so much available information. But until we're firmly convinced that we want something and that with God's grace, nothing will keep us from it, no amount of podcast will make any difference. So, how do we actually get motivated? That's the $1 million question. Well, the first thing to do is actually consume less or even stop altogether. I know that sounds strange, but hear me out. If you're listening to 4 or 5 different podcasts, sermons, or videos every day, there's no way for any of that truth to really sink in. Even if it's all good content, spiritual books, self improvement talks, it can still become noise if you're constantly filling your mind. You need time to digest. Cut back on the content, cut back on the books. Maybe go back and find that one message that really stirred your heart, something you knew God was using to speak to you, and re listen to it. Slow down. Take notes. If it's a book, grab a highlighter and go through it slowly. There's no use in being broadly read if we're not deeply formed. And when it comes to change, don't try to fix everything at once. Pick just one area, maybe one small physical habit and one spiritual or mental shift. Just think if you went through this entire year and you had formed one good habit, wouldn't you feel accomplished? Think of how far you would be in 10 years. Now, there are two big things that usually keep us stuck right here at this point in the journey: laziness and fear. And this next step is going to help you move past both of those. But before we get into that, let me quickly introduce myself. I'm Andrea, a Catholic wife and mother of 8, and I help Christian mothers break free from physical depletion and overwhelm so they can live peaceful, energetic, Christ centered lives. If you're ready to start making that kind of change, you can check out my free 7-day reset linked below. The truth is, both laziness and fear start fading the moment you take small, real action. Not a big overhaul, not a new plan or a program, just one simple step that proves to yourself and to God that you're willing to move forward. It's funny because we often think that we need motivation before we can take action. But the truth is, once you actually start, that sense of accomplishment begins to build. And that's what's creating the motivation to keep going. The problem is, most of us only have a general idea of what we want to change. Like, I want to be more patient with my kids. That's a good goal, but it's too broad. Ask me how I know. So get specific. Think about when you're most impatient. Pick one small section of the day. For me, it's mornings, getting everyone ready for school. During that time, I get laser focused on patience. I choose a short prayer to anchor myself, something like, Jesus, meek and humble of heart, make my heart like unto thine. I keep that prayer on my mind, ready for the exact moment I feel impatience rise. You can even print it out or tape it on the fridge as a reminder. Small intentional focus like that will do more for your personal growth than 100 vague resolutions. Or maybe your goal isn't to start something new, but to stop something that's dragging you down. Maybe you want to stop spending so much time on your phone. Start small. Find one simple thing to do instead during your downtime. Something that still lets your mind rest but actually nourishes you. Maybe check out a few magazines or books in the library and keep them right where you usually reach for your phone. Then choose a couple of hours of the day when your phone gets tucked away, somewhere that's just inconvenient enough to make you think twice before grabbing it. The point is here to take action and build momentum, because once you do that, the battle is half won. As St. John Henry Newman said, to live is to change, and to be perfect is to have changed often. We all have something God is nudging us to change in our lives. Don't be stagnant. Don't confuse consumption with action. Someone once told me, you're not really an adult until you can do hard things without being forced. That might sound a bit simplistic, but I think it's a really good definition. The people I've come across with the most personal motivation and discipline aren't the ones who consume the most. They're the ones who act through thick and thin, even when they don't feel like it. They move forward in trust, even when it's uncomfortable, because they know that discomfort isn't something to fear, but a sign that they're a branch the Father is pruning so it can bear more fruit, not one to be cast aside. They're not afraid to fail because they know that God's grace is sufficient. If you truly trust Him, you just have to start and believe that He will be there to hold you up along the way. He would not have planted these desires in your heart if He was not going to be there to help you accomplish them. And if you're not sure whether a certain step is God's will, as long as it doesn't contradict His teachings or interfere with your duties as a wife and mother, then take that step. Tell Him, Lord, I trust you. Help me if this is right. Stop me if it's not. Either way, I accept your will. Now, there are two sources of motivation: internal, things like conviction, love of God, and virtue, and external, things like money, pressure, or praise. Even psychologists agree that the strongest motivation is internal, and that's why the final step is constant prayer. Continually turning your heart toward God throughout the day, checking in, asking for grace, thanking Him for help. Because prayer keeps your actions aligned with God's plan. It keeps your why strong. It changes your internal direction, your thoughts, and your attitude like nothing else can. And if you feel paralyzed right now, maybe because some deeper healing is needed, whether that's physical, emotional, or spiritual, I'd love to help you with that. You can join my free 7-day reset linked below. Each day includes a small, practical habit to help you grow in peace, heal from depletion, and become a calm, Christ centered mother, motivated by Christ's truth and not by pressure. God bless you. Thank you for listening.